Hey, Podnutzians, welcome to the Mini PC Show, episode number 92. I am Door Geek, owner-operator Podnutz. If you would like to watch this show live as it happens on Wednesday nights around 9 p.m. If you join our Mattermost server or our Discord server, you will get notifications when we go live on this show. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will also be notified, or if you join the Mini PC Patreon at patreon.com/minipc show, you will also be notified when the show goes live. It's been definitely more than a couple weeks since we did a show, so we're going to first and foremost dedicate this show to Aaron B, the Patreon supporter. Thank you for all the support, Aaron. If it wasn't for Patreon people like you, it would be definitely more difficult to do each and every show that we do. There is going to be two quick links in the notes. I do think we actually talked about this on the last show, but here's like the official announcement and the official specs of the Jetson Nano board, which I will say I have very mixed feelings about. It's $99. It's basically like a compute module. You still need other hardware in order to get everything up and running. But it does sound like it could be pretty cool. It sounds like it could be pretty powerful. But again, it's $99. I see this as only being available for very like specific projects, very focused projects. The spec says it has 128 core Maxwell GPU capable of 472 gigaflops, 4 core ARM 57 1.4 gigahertz processor. Memory is 4 gigs of LDDR4 RAM. Storage built on board 16 gig eMMC. Can do video 4K at 30 frames a second. 4 streams of 1080p at 30 frames a second. That is insane. That's to encode. To decode and have going out, you can do 4K 60 frames a second or 2 4K 30 frames a second streams. That's also insane. It says it can support 12 cameras, which to me also sounds kind of insane. HDMI 2.0 or DPI 1.2 EDP 1.4, 2 simultaneous outputs, which is also again very nice. Has 1x PCIe capabilities. I'm sure it's through a socket and not through the actual like normal you see on a motherboard socket. It's more like a plug. It is a decent looking device is what I'm going to say. It's just $99, and I think it's going to be a hyper focused device. It's going to be very difficult to do general computing on it. The second link is to the actual developer.nvidia.com, where they actually go over the entire development kit itself, which is basically the board itself with the heatsink on it and all the ports baked right on. This is the one that I do believe is definitely no, this one's also only $99. I swore this one was more. Okay. So I feel better that you get an actual board, not just like a compute stick module for $99 with 4 USB 3.0 ports, gigabit NIC, 2 video outs, and the power barrel connector. So if you have $99 sitting around and you need something that can do more gigaflops that's not x86 based, that might be a really good selection is what I will say. Next thing I want to talk about really quick is I want to talk about the atomic pie.
Atomic pie.
Dude, your audio is like ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Clipping.
I'll move the mic away.
This is why you're supposed to come before the show starts and not 5 minutes after the show starts. Atomic Pi, I'll say I had a little bit of mixed results. I know there's some like rumor mills out there saying that it was not intended to be sold as a single board computer. It was a failed project. And then at the last second, they took all the boards, put them in boxes, and figured out how they could sell them as single board computers. I'll also say this: I don't care what the original intent was. For $35, $38 to get an Intel board, and then for like $4 more, get a baby board with a actual barrel connector on it. It's really hard to beat that dollar amount to get that functionality out of it. I had it running for at least a week, where I would come down every day, power it up every day, load to the default OS every day, Synergy to the desktop every day, run sudo apt get update upgrade dist upgrade, auto clean, and auto remove. And this is what I found out: the baked in command with the GUI just called software updates does something different. I don't know what it is, but it most definitely does something different. Because a week of running the commands, I was having 2 packages constantly fail, and I was only getting a certain amount of updates through the command interface. Then when I ran the GUI software updater, one of those ones that were failing went through and worked right. And since then, I've been getting constant updates every 2 or 3 days, just like a normal distribution. Think you might have your audio fixed, Rich?
How's it sound now?
Oh, much better, much better. So you got an Atomic Pi, but you got it shipped to the wrong place?
Okay, so just they ended up shipping it earlier than I was supposed to receive it, and I had planned on being in Orlando when I was going to receive it, and so they shipped it into Orlando like earlier, so I wasn't in Orlando at that time. And then the power supply, I got shipped to the house, and I was still in Orlando. So I think the lower wattage power supplies I was using would have worked, but I think the wireless keyboard I was using, the dongle, had some issues. So I think that was my issue with it. And I put out a video, I guess if you go to flyingrich.com, you can see it, on loading pfSense Firewall, which the GUI on the firewall is pretty nice. It's a little bit of a high-end firewall, so if you're not a super techie, you may not appreciate it. If you are a super techie, you will very much so appreciate it. And basically, I used a USB 3 to gigabit Ethernet just adapter, and I have another adapter that has a USB 3 hub on it. So for just about, I forget what the final price was, but about $63, you'd go to Amazon, order all of those items, and you could have yourself a pfSense firewall. Or you could be running, what did Brian say the other firewalls were you could run?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that question. Oh man, it's the GUI based one that's more like the old stereo rack mount system where there's different sections you can add to it.
And I got it on the tip of my tongue. I'm sure I'll remember in like when we talk about the next topic.
You can run untangle, but the other ones I will mention also is IP Fire, Smooth Wall, Clear OS. The gimmick is you can run any of them because this is x86 hardware. There's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to run any and every single one of them. The only question is, to get the second NIC, is the support for that hardware in that operating system. I know the Amazon Basic one in your video is an unbelievably generic driver. I've not seen that device not work in any and everything.
Oh yeah, that Amazon Basics. I got 3 of them. I use them for everything.
Yeah, and I will say you did definitely skip a couple steps in the video of like how to actually create the media and then what to do after you boot the first time. But it's at least it's at least proof of concept for people out there. You can run pfSense on this board with no problem. And I literally laughed out loud. It's not going to be in the notes because I don't try to link to trolling articles. And there was an article on Hackaday basically insulting the board, saying it was basically garbage. It was like stupid. It was useless. It was pointless. And in the article, obviously not understanding how any hardware works, he said it would probably never get any software updates. And I thought to myself, is he on drugs? Is he trolling? Or does he genuinely not know how computers work? You go buy a desktop or laptop, you will never get a software update basically like from the manufacturer for that device. The device is based off classes of devices by other companies, whether it be Intel, Marvel, Nvidia, I mean, countless. And those companies are the ones that put out the software updates. And then in Linux, it's a question of if it's popular, other people create the software updates. So I don't think he understands how computers work, because literally the second I read that, I went and did a update, and I was getting updates on the board. From the first day I had this thing up and running, I've been getting updates on the board. So Hackaday, you let me down. You let somebody completely incompetent post a completely troll bait, clickbait article on your website. And if I could blacklist your entire domain for like at least a week, I would. But, because the internet isn't actually free and open, I can't do that yet.
So right now, the Atomic Pi is $42, which I still think is a bargain. I still think it's worth every penny of it. And actually, I don't know if I got it with me. I think I may have. Yeah, I did bring it with me. I wanted to see if I could run ESXi on it, which I should be able to. I just haven't tried booting it with it.
I can't see why it wouldn't work. It might not run fast or great, but it should work.
Well, the real problem is the RAM, that it only has 4 gigs of RAM. So theoretically, you could run like a bare bones lab. Not that it was going to do anything, but that you could try testing out a couple of ESXi hosts with VMware. So pretty much for what, $120 and some power, you could have your own lab, which I think my i5 NUC that I'm running, I have my home VMware lab, and I think just the i5 NUC was like 400 and change bucks. Again, that has 32 gigs of RAM and an SSD and a couple of things. But if you wanted to do a multiple node lab and test stuff out, yeah, this would work.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, it's one of those bang for buck thing. It's really hard to beat that price. And I will say, for like a week, I kept powering it down every day. What I will say is, I would literally just go shut down, power down, and then when I hit the power button, it wouldn't power back up. So I'd have to literally unplug the power cable, plug the power cable back in, even though there's a battery connected to it. Half the time or more, I did have to go back into the BIOS and disable IPv4 and IPv6 network PXE booting, because that literally takes like 3 minutes. It takes forever to boot. So then after that, I said, well, let me just leave it running. And now it's been running for basically a week nonstop, 0 hiccups, because I also ran a constant ping, and I was putting it to a file just to see if there was any network drops or any lag or anything. And then took the concatenated file, dumped it into a simple database, and just queried. And I said, show any record where this number is greater than 1 from the next record, because it was, tens of thousands,
Mm-hmm.
and it literally like once or twice missed a single ping out of like a week. So it's really, as far as I can tell, rock solid, stable so far. There is still one update I'm not getting though, Rich, and I will tell you, it's a EUEFI firmware update, which this thing isn't running UEFI. It's running classic BIOS.
Well, there is a safe boot in the BIOS, and you can turn that off.
Oh,
I believe that's the UEFI.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, and I don't know if that will get fixed. I don't know when that will get fixed. I don't know if I need that fix, is what I'll be, to be very honest, because everything seems to be working, and working fine is what I'm going to say. I've tried to print more than at least one case for this, and I've had very mixed results. I will say, because of the different hardware configurations that are possible. You can have just the regular board using the Dolby cables. You can have the regular board and the baby board with the power. You can have the regular board with the breakout board, or you can have the regular board with the breakout board and the baby board.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, hard to get all the cases done on it. So how much did you boot the normal operating system, Rich? That's my question.
Only a couple of times. And I hate to say it, I'm on like week 3 of having a cold, so I haven't been very active, and had just family stuff going on, good stuff, nothing, just stuff taking my attention away. So I haven't been able to geek out in my office like I normally would.
Okay, there's a link. There's a link I'm going to make sure is in the notes, and it's because by default, when you go to boot, the password is on the same screen, and you see the password, and it's for the account called a Atomic Pi. You put the password in, you can log in. There's certain things you can do, and they just work. But there's certain things, if you try to do, it will prompt you for a root password. But there is no root password, which makes no sense. So
I think if you SSH in, it shows you the root password.
No, there is no root password. There is no root password.
Oh wait, yeah, you're right. It's Atomic. You're logging in with user Atomic Pi.
Right. So here's a link in the notes where basically it shows you how to go and basically enable the root account and have a password work in it. And it's basically updating the ETC policy kit, POLKIT, local authority conf.d 51-ubuntu admin conf, my lord. And I had to edit that and then reboot, and then I could do anything I wanted as long as I just provided the same password that I already had for my end user, which of course I promptly changed because the password was ridiculous. In the GUI, I could not change automatic login.
Hey, Rich.
Hey, man. So, yeah, that link will be in the notes. If you find yourself having headaches with the Atomic Pi, where it's asking for a password, and no matter what you type in, it will not work, you need to go and do this one edit to this one file, reboot, and then it will let you actually do things in root on the Atomic Pi.
So the only other thing I want to comment on is the guy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The guy writing the article in Hackaday, I believe it was, said that there's a finite number of them and there'll be no more. And
isn't that everything else in the world too?
Well, and when I read his article and then I looked and it said there's 9 left. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's only 9 of these left. And I don't see that today looking at the Amazon link. It doesn't say, hurry now, only 9 left.
Well, I know, but him saying that means nothing. That's like saying there's a limited number of Teslas. Sure.
Right.
They can only make so many. So to say there's a limited number and say and like call it out as being a bad thing, to me is utterly disingenuous. And the one story I read said they're doing this with the hopes of being able to financially back a revision 2 of the board, which I'm sure will cost more money because it has to cost more money. It can't cost less money.
So do we do a clean sweep of Intel boards, and like for a segue to the next Intel board from here?
Well, I mean, I don't even know if they can go to another Intel board, but it would be nice if they could, just because. I like competition right now. The low priced Intel, it doesn't exist.
Well, okay. So what was the o-droid that you got, Dor?
o-droid H2.
H2, and that was an Intel board, and what that cost, and how's it going for you?
That was over $100. That was like $120 when everything was said and done. And don't get me wrong, it runs good, really good. Does it run great, fantastic? No, because to get a really great, fantastic running Intel board, it's $300. I mean, to be real, it's going to be pushing 300, if not more. So for $100, I think it's unbelievably capable, but it's not going to do 4K this. It's not going to do, crazy gigaflops. But if you just need a simple desktop that runs YouTube or runs Kodi or runs Plex or runs these little servers, it works really good.
Sure. Yep.
But yeah, it's like 4 times the cost of a Atomic Pi.
And I think that's why I like the Atomic Pi, because it's a very low cost entry into Intel.
Very cool. Everything going good, Brian?
Yeah, just still setting up. Everything's going okay.
Gotcha. Well, and here's another link in the notes, 919, Rich. And this is the kind of thing that I literally have to bring to the show. It's the real reason to bring it to the show is just so I can find the link later when I have time. But it's basically how to create a micro SD card with Ubuntu Mint on it, which, of course, there's no such thing as Ubuntu Mint. But I digress.
If they say so, it's got to exist. I read it on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I found it on the internet.
Because the logic is I am going to want to try different operating systems on this board sooner or later. So I'm going to bookmark this one so then I know how to create a micro SD version of a operating system so I can boot to that. And I will say this, I do not expect the micro SD version of any operating system I put on this board to run as good as the eMMC operating system baked on the board. So I'm going to do it hopefully soon just for testing purposes, but I doubt I will actually stick with it because what it's running now is a Debian operating system, which for all intents and purposes is Ubuntu with less
stuff.
What's the word? I don't want to say class, but
it's
with like
core.
Yeah. Good core, yeah.
Aren't you guys going to save some of that for the show?
This is the show. We started 25 minutes ago.
No, don't say that.
Yeah.
I thought you said you weren't going to start exactly at 9.
No, at around 8:10, I said I had everything scheduled, ready to go at 9.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's so I want to say, like, for right now, I'm really satisfied with the Atomic Pi. I don't care if they make more. They don't need to make any more. I got mine. I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate. I didn't complain. I just went and spent $30. Literally, the price of a decent steak and a beer, and I got myself a full-fledged computer. And it's running just for right now just fine. I would like to buy a screen. I might even use the old Joe Heck screen here, which is literally like a 5-6 inch screen. Put something on it and have it upstairs as like a family-ish computer because I don't need, an Amazon or a Google device.
Is that a touchscreen?
I do not believe it is, but I'm not sure. It's been so long since I booted it up. I'm going to say no, it's not a touchscreen because if it was, it would have to have a USB cable going to it.
Correct. Yep.
I'm not too sure how much have I missed of this conversation, but it really sounds really juicy, and I have to throw my 2 cents in.
Not a lot. I just talked a little bit about the Jetson Nano board, and then just jumped right into the Atomic Pi stuff. And so far, for $35, it's really hard to beat the functionality I'm getting out of it.
No, I fully agree, and I think ETA Prime had a really good video on it, and his review, it didn't showcase the best hardware in the world, but for that price, you really can't beat the processing power. And I just, hands down, regardless if it's a crummy processor, for the amount of money you're paying for it and what you can do with it that's a steal.
All right. 4 gigs of RAM. What single board computer can you get? All right. So it's $42.10 on Amazon right now. What single board computer can you get with 4 gigs of RAM for $42?
I don't know. That's a good one. Not much.
Yeah, the Rock 64, you can get really close. I want to say there is a Libre Elect board as well, but that one I want to say is about $57, $58. I know plenty of boards I can get close to it. You know what I mean? Like at least 3 or 4 boards I can approach, but it's not Intel. And because it's not Intel, the number of operating systems I can run on it is, to be honest, much less. Okay, and I do think I found the correct link there, Brian, to the ETA Prime video review first look at the Atomic Pi. It's 920 in the notes. And I'll try to make sure that's in the notes as well.
Cool. Thanks, Dor. I'm trying to find, I did share a link with you guys on an older Raspberry Pi lookalike, and it had aesthetics. I really like aesthetics when it comes to computers because they've been around for so long. So when you do something different, it just makes me feel like I'm getting something better, regardless if that's actually true or not. But this was a Raspberry Pi lookalike, a clone, and it had a white PVC on it, and it just looked really flashy. But it was an older model, and I think that was stumbling in around the low, I would say low 40s, maybe $50. Yes, it had a AM Logic S905X chip on it. Yeah, let's view this one. Yeah, it was coming in around $45. But
yeah, and this one
has 2 gigs of RAM. Yeah, you're right.
Right. And see, I'll say this. When I look at the Lee Potato, being Irish, I want to buy it because it says potato. And I haven't been able to enjoy a potato now in 2 years. But I digress. But when I see these kinds of processors, I'm not sure about how well they actually perform is what I'm going to say this in the nicest way I can. High performance design quad 64-bit 1.5 ARM Cortex A53 processor. I don't know how that compares to like o-droids or Raspberry Pis even or anything else. I will say this, Lee Potato, Libre Computers focus on more open hardware, not Raspberry Pi type closed source binary blob GPUs, but completely open hardware. So with that stated, I think the only operating systems that will run on this are basically operating systems that they help develop. You might get lucky and get a Diet Pi to run on it, but it's the kind of thing I wouldn't hold my breath. But this price still $45. It isn't like this is a ripoff. This is still a very fair price.
Okay, so the Pine Rock 64 is with 4 gigs of RAM is $45. It's $44.95. And I don't want to throw one under the bus over the other. I think it's, if you want Intel, okay, get the Atomic Pi. If you want ARM and whatever else is on the board, get the Rock 64, which I have 2 of, and I think they're great.
Yeah, and like the nicest way I can put it is if what is to be read to be believed, that there is going to be no more Atomic Pies. Well, I guess if you haven't got your Atomic Pi, you ain't getting one. You better get a Rock 64. But I will say this: the Rock 64 is unbelievably competent. It's an ARM-based computer, which means no, you're not going to be able to basically download any operating system that you have experience with and just run it. But you will be able to go and to either get something like Diet Pi or get one of their custom Debian operating systems and run a heck of a lot off of it with very little issue. I am unbelievably pleased at the stability of my Rock 64. It is so far on par with the Banana Pi Pro for stability, and that is not something I say lightly.
I think that is thank you to Linux for that one, and the developers as well too.
Yeah, thanks everybody around, and I am a big fan of the Pine hardware.
No, I have to agree. I am as well.
Okay,
well,
so
if you want to talk about the Pine hardware, then why don't you jump to line 945 in the notes? A Meridroid, yours and my, at least one of our favorite companies to interact with because of their customer service, now have a upcoming product page for the Pinebook Pro, where they're going to try to keep updating this page with new details as they become available.
Getting on that waiting list. That's what it's all about. Getting on the waiting list so you can get pre-ordered.
Guys, one of the things I want to talk to, I already said this to Dor. If you go to somebody because you hear them from us, tell them, hey, I heard it on Mini PC. And the reason I tell you, I don't want a kickback. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is somebody like a Meridroid or whoever it may be out there to be aware of us and, send us press releases, send us eval equipment so we can review it for you. That's what I'm looking to do. And I don't even want to keep the stuff. I want to give it away to users. I don't want to, because if I get stuff for free, then I'm going to be partial to them.
Or even a loaner would be good.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, just send a loaner out.
Yeah, and I will say I am really afraid. I am really afraid. I'm truly afraid that I am hyping myself a bit too much about the Pinebook Pro. But I really, honestly, truly believe it's going to be among the better performing ARM anything that we're going to have the pleasure to play with probably in the next 2 to 3 years. And here's an example why I think that is the case. If you go to line 924 in the notes, you're redirected to a CNX-software article, which I will say there's a couple websites I go to kind of frequently, Lil Putin, Linux Gizmos, and CNX Software. On this one, they go over the Toy Brick, which is an RK3399 Pro, not an RK3399. This is a different processor, basically the next generation Pro. In the TikTok, I guess this is the talk. But this board has shown to outperform the Jetson Nano. And the Jetson Nano touts all these gigaflops.
Whoa. Get out.
Well, they say, here's the thing. a benchmark is nothing more than testing how something performs on a benchmark. So if this thing is capable of delivering 472 gigaflops of performance, or sorry, to beat that, which this is saying that this can beat it, it can go, more. This is kind of insane, and this is not using your standard normal like Exynos processor or Qualcomm processor. This is using a Kirin processor. It looks like, if I'm not mistaken. But if this thing can perform as well as this thing says this thing can perform, oh giddy, giddy, giddy! I'm afraid to see how much it's going to cost.
I hope it doesn't cost too much.
Wait, there's no price on this thing? Oh, wait, here it is.
I didn't see it. Yeah.
So below the grid, downside on the toy brick, blah, more expensive than Jetson Nano since the 3 gigs of RAM version sells for $249, 6 gig for $299. All right, so it's a $300 board for the one with 6 gigs of RAM, which 6 gig, the RAM is what costs, and $299 is a decent price.
Well, I'll say this: going by phone stuff, it isn't necessarily the RAM that costs the money, but yes, the RAM costs the money. It's the bus that has the ability to handle the RAM and the RAM. Because once you go above 4 gigs of RAM, you need a different bus in order to handle the RAM. So once you go above that into like the 6 realm, you need to basically have a completely different bus on board to handle the addressing of that RAM. If it can outperform, okay, the Nano is less money. Let's just get that out there right now. It's less money. So for $300, maybe it should be able to outperform it.
So I don't know if I'm willing to jump on this for $300, but it has 2 things I want. It has an HDMI and a display port that would satisfy my need to power my monitors.
Slow down, Roy Rogers. What you don't know is, can it pump both of them at the same time?
Okay.
Because we don't know that yet. But I'll also say this. I also have now a buddy in Texas who has a PCIe to NVMe adapter. It was literally like $8. It was something stupid, crazy cheap. And the speeds he was getting through it were silly, insane fast. So now when I see a board that doesn't have NVMe on board, I'm not sweating, because when I see PCI Express, I know if I really want to, I can get my computer to boot in 2.5, 3 seconds via NVMe. And now, have you guys actually touched computers with NVMe drives in them?
I have one on me right here, right next to me. I haven't bought a drive for it yet.
Okay, well,
don't. I have one.
Don't. If somebody gives you an NVMe drive, go on eBay and sell it. Don't. Because once you go NVMe, you will never in your life want to go back. It's like the very first time you got cable internet in your house. You know what I mean? You never want to go back. I have now 2 computers with NVMe drives in them. One of them is my work laptop. To boot to a login screen on my work laptop is literally 2.5 seconds. I have another NVMe computer upstairs. Really, it's a cheap thing, which is a really cheap NVMe drive in it. The thing boots in like 3.5 seconds. Don't go NVMe unless you're going to go NVMe for the rest of your life. Because now, whenever I boot any other computer, I'm like, the hell's taking so long?
Spoiled you.
Yeah, I guess got used to the SSD boot like 20 seconds, right?
Yeah, 20 seconds takes forever.
Yeah, I mean, days of EDI.
No.
Yeah, IDE and
IDE rather. I'm sorry.
The pre-SATA. Yes, where literally you would hear the drive go, and then like 10 seconds later you would see something on the screen.
When I was doing video editing on the Amiga, the 500 meg drive that I don't know how much it cost, it sounded like a gas turbine engine spinning up.
You know, it was the March of Death when you got the clicking noise. Click,
oh,
click,
geez.
click, click.
And really quick, I almost forgot. I got an email here. I'm going to put it in the Mumble chat. If one of you guys feel like reading it, I would ask you to. If not, I guess I'll read it. I'm not good at reading it. Long story short, good friend of the show, 5150, Kansas Linux Fest is happening, and he just wants to make sure that the word gets out about it.
Yeah, one of you guys is going to have to read that because it's super small on my Mumble chat here.
I just need to adjust that. Okay. And come over here. Click email. Okay, because copy and pasting. Hey, Dor, could have knocked me over with a feather, but a acquaintance from Kansas City who hits the same fest I do clued me in that there will be a Kansas Linux Fest this year at kansaslinuxfest.org, August 9th through 11th at the campus of Wichita State University. Since the con mainly attracts locals, and there is nothing near the actual campus, getting a block of rooms has not worked out in the past. Were anyone to fly in, I would suggest finding a spot in Old Town. Old Town was a downtown revitalization project, and has convenient hotels, brew pubs backed by their own breweries, restaurants with craft beers, museum of local history oddities. If anyone is confused what hotel to pick, refer them to my email address. The upshot being, I think I can show everyone a good time after the official activities end. So if you're anywhere by Kansas City, Wichita State University in August, I definitely encourage you go to Kansas Linux Fest. In my humble experience, the smaller the conference, the better the people, the more you'll be able to just sit down and chat with people, have a good time, learn things, especially if you don't consider yourself a Linux expert in any way. If you're a complete noob, you can definitely go and have a really good time. So I want to thank 5150 for that email, and I will be mentioning this on other shows, but I know the more shows this gets mentioned on, the better.
That's some pretty good advice, Dor. I've actually never went to any of these Linux festivals, and that's pretty far away from where I'm sitting, but we do tend to have the occasional Linux show from here to there, right around the Boston area. So I think I might check one out.
Yeah, I can definitely tell you, the people I know who've had the best times at Linux conferences are people that admit to me that they don't really know Linux. They're just there to meet people and learn, kind of thing.
I thought you were going to say people that don't stay sober long.
There are people that stay sober?
What? That's a thing?
All I got to say is probably the most fun I had at a Linux Fest was watching you and Jonathan Nadeau really drunk walking around Boston.
You and Jonathan were making out?
No, walking around. Worse yet, Jonathan was leading Dor because Dor didn't know where he was going.
Oh, okay. I got
I didn't know where I was going, and the blind guy had to tell me where to go.
Oh, man.
Okay, another one I'll say that caught my eye, and I'm really, okay. I'm mildly upset I have not had time to play with this. I want to play with this. Line 926 in the notes, and I'm not even going to pronounce this one right. Palomera. I don't know. This promises to be a basically social media platform hosted on Raspberry Pis. So you basically just need a Raspberry Pi, an SSD, or a USB, a service account with a Dyn DNS, or any other DNS provider. There are plenty of free ones out there, and then electricity. And they say about an hour of your time to actually set this up. And what this is a federated network. So the logic being, if hypothetically me, Rich, and Brian all have Raspberry Pis sitting around doing nothing, we could install the software on our Raspberry Pi, share our domain with each other, and basically link our networks up and have a basically ad hoc social network where we don't have to worry about Facebook, Twitter, or any other entity controlling the infrastructure. Instead, we would be controlling the infrastructure. This is the kind of thing I like the idea. Unfortunately, there's no way this is going to be successful. This is like version 0.0.0.4, and we need version 1, which probably won't happen for like another 2 or 3 years. But I like the fact that somebody's at least attempting to broach this area.
Okay, so I'm scrolling through here. The problem is, what's the screenshot look like? No,
I don't know.
if it's a social network, am I going to see Facebook? Am I going to see Twitter? Am I going to see Instagram like UI? Where is it?
It may not be fully baked yet. That's a good question.
Well, if you follow the links through, you'll end up at Pleroma.social.
I think it's pronounced Pleroma.
You got it. It says it's a single column user interface, detailed theme settings, not safe for work, attachment hiding, keyword filtering, use custom emoji, standalone can be run parallel. They're giving you, I'll say this, if you follow the links and go through, they're trying to give you more information. But yes, Rich, I will say this is your classic example of a upstart being immature about getting information off efficiently, is the way that I can put it. It's like very inefficient in what they're doing.
So it says compatible with GNU, Social, Mastodon, blah.
Okay, I put a link in our notes to an interface with it, and yes, it definitely looks Twitter-like, is what I will say. Where you have timeline mentions, public timelines, the whole known network, statuses, following, followers. Yeah, definitely Mastodon or Twitter-like is what I'll say.
You know, I was just about to say, if they would have done this a few years ago, because I think social media has been played so much that this may not move the needle. But I don't know, because now we've been hearing so much about, the Big Brother, watching over us, and issues with privacy concerns with Facebook and Google Plus shutting down. They might see some likes here, if they were to get some screenshots and maybe get going a little bit. But this might do fairly well. I don't know.
Okay, so I googled Mastodon and Pi, and the GitHub repo for that says update. I have stopped running Mastodon on my Pi as it needs too much memory. I only run Pleroma now.
There you go. Boom.
So maybe that is the way to go. You know what? I might just spin it up and see what it's like. Maybe one of you guys will join me.
So my question is, does it have to be local? Can I have it off-site and running, and then like have several of these things, several Pis running off-site, running this software? Or does it have to stay local to where I'm sitting at my house? Do I have to be on the device? You know what I mean?
Oh, like on the same network.
Right.
Or VPNing into the network. I get you. I don't know.
I'm going to venture a guess and say no, as long as it's accessible. It will be the kind of thing where
Oh,
by
so you
look,
got to open the ports.
well, yes, you're going to have to open the ports, but the logic being, hypothetically, I could load one of these and give you guys user accounts to it, and you would be posting on my island, is the way that I decipher it. Now, you could have your own island, I could have my own island, Brian can have his own island, and then we can link our islands up in the Mastodon type of verse to where anything I post on my island will immediately be subhub over to your islands and posted as well. I'll say this: I despise limitations. A limitation is not a feature. If this thing is limited to 200 whatever characters, I can guarantee you the second posting I do, I'm going to run out of characters and then get really upset. That's why I can't stand Twitter. No matter what somebody asks me, it's never enough characters for me to answer correctly.
I agree. I have to fully agree on that.
But I mean, it looks good.
All right, so this is going to be number 2 on my to try list, and I still haven't done the. What is it, Brian? You've been talking about the hub, the home hub.
Oh, the Mozilla Gateway?
Mozilla, that's it.
Yeah, I was playing around with that for a little while. It's not 100% there yet. I mean, it's got some legs to grow still. I think it's more of a, hey, look what I can do. And then you forget about it for a little while.
Have you checked out Hass.io yet?
I did, actually. I loaded it up, and I played around with it for a little bit. It was very simple enough to add a few things on it, like my Google Home and Chromecast. The switches that I currently have, well, actually, I'm going to have one switch that I'm using in the kitchen that's a Wi-Fi switch. It's not compatible with that one, so I haven't, spent a ton of money on hardware just yet for turning on and off light switches. So I'm still in that area where I'm trying to figure out what to get, so I'm getting the right stuff that's compatible with the back end.
Gotcha.
But yeah, thank you for turning me on to that. That was it looks pretty good. It's definitely fully baked.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Okay, here's another one that I just caught my eye because we talked about the Rock 64 a little bit earlier. Again, Rock 64 is a board put out by Pine 64, RK3399, up to 4 gigs of RAM, less than $55 for the board. Line 926. If there are the people out there that love Arch, and Manjaro is a derivative of Arch. I'm not foolish enough to say it's an Arch-based systems because I don't like getting hate emails, but it's a derivative of Arch. Send your complaints to Linux Outlaws at whatever email address, not me. But Jaro is making a version of it for the Rock 64 board, and I will say, if you get an Arch derivative to run on one of these boards, there is little doubt it's going to be really, really useful. You're going to have to be like a professional administrator because that's what you really need to be when you run Arch. But if you are comfortable being that and you own one of these boards, I think you're going to see a really good operating system coming out here shortly. It's basically in like the first development stages. This was posted on May 21st. And I honestly believe this is really nothing more than preparing the ecosystem so when the Pinebook Pro comes out, you're going to have a very solid, tight, squeaky clean Arch-based distribution with a really good GUI on top if you want to run it. I think it's really smart of them to start doing this development work now because it's going to be the same processor, the RK3399 on the Pinebook Pro. So this will be a good, at least, development area for them.
Not to switch subjects a little bit, but you had mentioned that you might be getting your hopes up a little too high about the Pinebook Pro, and I think the Pine 64 referenced that laptop as a Chromebook replacement, so it's capable of operating just as much as you operate a Chromebook. So you're not going to be ripping or doing any movie production or anything like that on the device. So I think if you go into it with that expectation, it's going to do fairly well. And if I can actually live on a Chromebook, I can do work on a Chromebook and still be successful. So
So my 14-inch Chromebook, the only thing, now that I can SSH with it and it has a Linux subsystem, the only thing I don't do is edit videos. Otherwise, my 14-inch Chromebook is never more than a few feet away from me.
Amen. I fully agree with that one. I try to keep it close too.
So my only squawk on it is, why don't they illuminate the keyboard? What the heck is up with that?
Yeah, that really adds a touch of class to it. Yeah, I'm not too sure how much more that would be on the price tag, but I can't imagine it'll be that much more. I can understand touchscreen, but the backlit keyboard.
So I have a bendy stalk USB light that I plug into the side.
That's a way of getting around it.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to figure out, can I tear apart my bezel around the screen and drill a couple LEDs to shine down onto the keyboard?
Yeah, that's like the old Lenovo ThinkPad. Instead of having a backlit keyboard right up by the webcam, there was a light that would point down to the keyboard. I'll say this. I understand them comparing it to a Chromebook, but I don't, it's, you don't want to say that, because now every Chromebook, basically, huge percentage of the Chromebooks that come out have touchscreens. Huge percentage of the Chromebooks can run Android apps, can run Linux, can run Chrome OS. Huge part of Chromebooks have 10-hour battery lives. And then for them to say Chromebook, well, you can't run Android, you can't run Chrome OS, you don't have backlit keyboard, it's not going to fold all the way around like a tablet, and it's probably not going to have a 10-hour battery life. If I was them, I would not say that.
I mean, it's kind of like saying car and not specifying economy car or exotic car. It's like saying car.
Yeah, or just saying utility vehicle, and everyone has a different picture in their mind of what that means. It's, something else to different people. I can see now, if this was 2 years ago, I could see them saying Chromebook-like experience, because 2 years ago, most of them didn't run Android. None of them ran Linux. Most of them didn't fold all the way around to be a tablet. Most of them got 4 hours of battery life. It would have made a lot more sense. If I was them, I would not say Chromebook Lite. I would just say economy laptop like or something.
So, Rich, you said car. I would say car.
Because you park the car.
Agreed. Fully agreed. Oh.
Yeah, and I will say I'm happy. I like it when I'm wrong. I know I've said this on this show before, but I really do like when I'm wrong. Line 934. It looks like ASUS is coming out with another board, because I kind of said when they came out with their board, what the hell are they doing? They're not going to keep making this thing, and they kept making the thing. It got high reviews for video output, didn't get really high reviews for a lot of other aspects of what you could be running on it. And it was a little bit pricey, but it was a very solid board. Well, now they're coming out with a Asus Tinker Edge T board, which, you guessed it, this is going to be a TPU coprocessor enabled Google Edge TPU coprocessor. Sorry, enabled board coming out by Asus, running a ARM Cortex A53. You know, I don't know, you know, how this is going to work out, but Google already now has like 3 or 4 boards coming out with their TensorFlow, Coral, TPU enabled like ecosystem on the board. So definitely Google is going full throttle on this.
So Google's
stuff.
USB TPU is $75, and I'm trying to find a price on this thing, and I can't find a price on it.
Well, I know the last Asus was like 30 to 40% more than other boards. So I'm going to guess this is going to be over 100, maybe 130, maybe $140 when all said and done. We would like to know about pricing and availability, but Asus tells us to contact our local Asus representative for more information. Oy vey.
So this board is performing a special function. This is powered by their Core Edge for AI to the edge. So I think looks like that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it's utilizing Coral, I think is.
So
Oh,
this
yes.
is the Google Coral Edge TPU on module.
Looks like it's optimized for TensorFlow or TensorFlow Lite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is interesting, but it's the kind of thing I need to see how people use it, when people use it, why people use it, in order for me to see if it's something I could ever use.
What do you think, Rich?
You know, to me, it's all depending on the price, because I would rather I've got a number of single board computers. I've got a number of single board computers better than the Asus, and if I could buy a $75 USB TPU from Google, I'd rather just blow the $75.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on with that pricing door. I think it's going to be around less than $200, but certainly above 100.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I think I would get this board if I was interested in learning more about TensorFlow and kind of playing around with the machine learning, because that seems a little interesting. But I'm not a programmer, but it does intrigue me a lot as far as how you can program a machine to recognize certain objects. So I think a device like this would limit as far as your imagination goes. so if you,
it has power over Ethernet and SATA on board, which are kind of big deals. Those are things I like.
Oh, and
Yeah.
here's the thing. There's another one. If you go to 928 in the notes, Lil Putin talks about these two boards, because there's 2 boards, the Tinker Edge T and the Tinker Edge R. Those are the 2 boards running different TensorFlow TPUs and everything. But if you scroll down, it's the Tinker Edge R is running the Rockchip RK3399 Pro.
I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, this is the real reason why I bookmarked this one. And I knew there was a reason, but until I found I could.
Oh, okay.
Where this one has 4 gigs of RAM of DDR4 in the upgraded model, 2 gigs of DDR3 in the lower model. It looks like 16 gig eMMC on board. This one I actually expect to be quite well performing, is what I'm going to say.
3 USB-C and a USB. What's the oval one? Why can't I think of it?
USB-C.
I'm sorry, 3 USB 3. That's what I said wrong, and a USB-C, which is very nice. I don't know if the USB-C is for power.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I read this wrong. 4 gigs of DDR4 system RAM, and then separately 2 gigs of DDR3 dedicated RAM just for the NPU. And then you have the 16 gig eMMC, the gigabit NIC, Bluetooth, USB 3, 3 of them, and then the Type C. Wow. Yeah. I don't expect this thing to be cheap, but I expect it to be powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be over $200.
So you can actually put this in a car to do some self-driving, maybe, not a complete system, but a component of part of a multi-system.
As far as the TPU goes, for an automobile use case, I don't believe this would be able to process enough camera images quickly enough frames per second, quickly enough to handle everything. Now, if you had a number of these, I would think it would.
I think the what was it you were reviewing earlier, Dor? The first one when I came on. What's the first board? The Jensen.
The Atomic Pi, the Jetson. Yeah.
the Jensen, I believe, does 30 frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
So if this Rock Pro can outperform that chip, then I don't think it would have an issue. You know what I mean? Being able to recognize.
I'm not saying this versus the Jetson. I'm saying this versus the self-driving. To process all of the camera inputs, you're going to have multiple cameras. Mm-hmm. So not only are you going to have to do 30 frames a second, you're going to have multiple of them doing 30 frames a second to process all the imagery.
I'm not sure, but on the board, I'm going to guess the Type C is not for power. It looks like it has a quote unquote normal barrel connector right next to the NIC. And if this thing is as expensive as you say, Rich, I'm going to be discouraged. I would really hope they could fight to get this thing close to $100.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be in the $250 range.
Yeah, it looks like a beast. It really does.
Based on the RAM and the hardware on it. I think you're looking at $250.
A dedicated RAM only just for the NPU. I mean that's pretty cool. I wonder if it has dual channel memory for the DDR4 4 gig. That would make things a little bit better. But this is a really nice board. Definitely looks a step up from the first Tinker board we're looking at.
Oh, it's exciting. I mean, it's really like, yeah. Now that I'd love to get my hands on, like an eval unit.
Yeah. Hexacore. Oh man. That's this is pretty awesome. Pretty cool stuff. Did you guys bring up the honeycomb yet?
Nope.
Did you bookmark that one, Rich?
Oh, I didn't.
Honeycomb, was that the one I sent you the link today?
Yeah, that thing was gorgeous.
Should be the last item.
I want to look at that again.
It's not the last item. Maybe I didn't bookmark it. Yeah, you know what? I was at work, so I didn't bookmark it.
Now I'm trying to find it.
Got to look through our chat earlier today.
Yes, this was the. Is it in production yet? It looks like pre-production. Honeycomb LX2K 16-core mini ITX ARM workstation. They're calling it a workstation. So it's for pre-order right now, $550. But what kind of geeked me out about this was the 2 times, so the 2 SFP plus ports on this particular single board computer. Now, if folks don't understand what SFP stands for, it's a small form factor that allows you to slot an optical SFP or a copper SFP, and the plus allows you to go beyond 1 gigabits per second. So you can actually, theoretically, you can do 10 gigs.
Yeah, typically an adapter. Basically, it's most normal folk understand Ethernet. This would be how you would connect like fiber optic or fiber channel over Ethernet. That you would do a 10 gig connection.
I didn't know why Brian was so excited. Now I understand.
That is wicked cool. I don't think I've seen a small board like this with those 2 SFP ports on it. I'm like, I can use this. I can actually use this.
So theoretically, if you have the infrastructure, a high speed, a 10 gig switch, you could bond both ports and get 20 gig of throughput on it.
Oh yes.
So you're saying I could like stream stuff, like I could stream to, I don't even know now that I stop to think about it. I could stream 1080p content to like 40 devices, if not more.
So this is the crack to make your VMware ARM virtualized infrastructure with. And gosh, I'm trying to think production wise, this board just based on those 2 ports has got to be over $500.
Yeah. I mean,
and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a lot higher than that.
I'm actually shocked that it's $550. You have DDR4, 64 gigs of RAM, supporting 64 gigs of RAM, 16-core ARM processor. That's an M.2 slot, PCIe, 8 times lane.
Okay.
Come on, this is crazy. This is so insane.
Okay, of the high dollar items I'm kind of like getting giddy about, this is one of them. This is like, if I had a spare $500 kicking around, I would be pre-ordering it.
So I'm going to guess that the peddly little RJ45 gigabit NIC would really be more like a service port, a admin port.
That's kind of like to bootstrap the device,
Remote access.
Yeah, I don't have any high, I'm gigabit Ethernet at home. I don't have any high-end, high-speed stuff, bonding ports or anything like that going on. And in fact, oh, wait, yeah, if you YouTube around, there's some people with some videos on this stuff and how to do it on the cheap. But I don't even know that I'd want one of those switches in my office because it would be making so much heat and noise. But yeah, this is for me. Okay, so the ability to have 20 gig throughput on it is a big deal, but the idea that I have 16 cores and 64 gigs of RAM, whoa! Oh, of course, M.2 PCIe, 4 SATA ports. So we're talking, if VMware got their crap together and got the ARM. And I hate them talking Raspberry Pi. I know Raspberry Pi is kind of ubiquitous. If they started talking ARM virtualization, 3 of these boards you could be doing vSAN. You could have. I mean, there's so many things you could be doing with this as a virtualized ARM infrastructure. Now, as the single board sits, I mean, forget about VMs. You could be doing Docker on this easy. You could be doing. Pretty much this one board could replace all of my my ARM infrastructure at home with this one board.
I wonder if XCP-NG supports ARM, or is that x86?
I don't know.
Yeah, because that you can certainly do virtualization very similar to to VMware. It's a
Yeah,
bare bone hypervisor.
There's open source, so KVM is an open source virtualization solution. And I'm only one, I do VMware, that's my daytime job. But they've been at the Vegas, keynote speech for VMworld. They had the Raspberry Pi out there, and they're like, "Oh, we're running on the Raspberry Pi." Like, where's my pre-release, beta release, something release?
Yeah.
And apparently they're out there, and they say you could roll your own ARM hypervisor because there is source code out there. But I am not the geek to be doing that. That's just, I am not that geeky or geeky enough or skilled in that arena to be compiling. Basically, what they did is to get it to run within the 1 gig of RAM on the Raspberry Pi, they pulled out a lot of feature sets that maybe aren't the most used that you would boot an ESXi host with. So, but with this 64 gigs of RAM, yeah, you're up there. You could run a full featured ESXi host on this.
Yeah, and it's very, very tiny enough to where you can have a cluster of these things.
Oh yeah, you have a cluster and a lunchbox. Yeah.
I'm curious as to what they're using to cool this thing down with, and how loud that's going to sound.
Yeah. So you wouldn't have a heatsink on that bigger than an Atomic Pi, I don't think. That's just looking at the board. It would definitely be smaller than an Atomic Pi.
I certainly have to follow this one. I'd drop my money on it. Just to have it. Just to have it. Just to say, look what I got.
So I'm assuming this doesn't come with RAM. So for $550, you're getting the CPU. I'm assuming the RAM is a la carte. And of course, your SFP connectors are going to be a la carte. But 4 SATA ports, that's pretty hot. And you got an M2. So this is definitely set up, in my mind, set up for virtualization. This is definitely set up for ARM virtualization. Because you would boot the host with the M2, you would have storage on the 4 SATA ports. You got 64 gigs of RAM. That's up to 64 gigs of RAM. And 16 core. This is definitely, they have virtualization in mind.
Wouldn't you boot to the micro SD?
You could. Is there a micro SD on this? Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is. More than a couple infrastructures that I've seen, and trust me, I don't like it, but they boot VMware off of micro SD, and I'm like, I've heard so many people with so many issues over like the last 2 years with corrupt SD cards. It's like, why would you trust it to that? I don't know why.
So the micro SD is fine for booting as long as it's read only. If you're only doing read ops on the micro SD, that's fine. If you're doing read write ops, don't count on it lasting.
I don't know if you can do read only in the VMware verse. Well, every place I've seen it, it's read write.
Yeah, so typically what happens is when you boot a host off microSD and as an ESXi host in VMware, it's doing a read-only, and then any kind of log files I'd be writing, it would have either a disk on board, some sort of M2 or another disk, or it would write out to a log server. But you could do diskless booting on ESXi hosts. It would be doing a TFTP. Why can't I say that? TFTP boot.
Oh, don't forget that it comes with 64 gigs of eMMC flash storage. Boom.
All right. 550. 550 is a bargain.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So I don't know if you failed to mention the 16 core processor moves at 2.2 gigahertz.
That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really good find, man. I got to share this with my
Yeah,
peeps.
if there was, KVM for this, I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
Okay, I definitely got at least two more links I wanted to bring to the show. One of them is line 945 in the note. Sorry. Chip. Next thing or Chip went out of business basically now 9 months ago or so. And I really felt bad because I really did like what they were doing. I like the attitude I saw come from them. They were the ones who did the $9 board, and it really was a $9 board, and it ran slow, but it ran great for $9 kind of thing. But it looks like now the Chip is back in like the phoenix rising from the ashes, but this time it's called Popcorn at Popcorn Computer is what they say. And they're coming out with devices that are like the Super Popcorn for $69 and the Super 8 for $89. The original Popcorn Computer for $49 and what they call the Stovetop Companion Board for $39. So what it is, it's basically the chip computer with other add-on boards and stuff. I like the fact that they're coming back around, is what I'll say. More competition, better for us, the customers. So I will definitely be keeping my eye on this one, just to see if they can make a dent, if they can make some headway, if they can keep up with all the changes that have happened and actually make something competitive.
Okay, what CPU is that? It says 8 CPUs on the Super 8. But what is the CPU?
It's what plants crave. It has electrolytes. I don't know.
Well, they're certainly making it modular, which is, I think, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, there was the Onion that was a pure module base that was a successful Kickstarter, and they've sold some good units. And they're going with this modular unit as well. I will say, I think it's really hard to be a successful module-based computing system. But I do think someone's going to get it right. I don't know if it's going to be these guys, but I do think someone's going to get it right, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Well, the prices don't look out of control. So and it's cheap enough where you're not going to break the bank.
Okay, so again, I look at 4 CPUs, 8 CPUs, great. Okay, how much RAM? And it's not telling you. It doesn't tell you what CPU.
Yeah.
My interest is there. It's high.
I only see 100 meg of bandwidth on the stovetop companion. So
the stovetop is the carrier board.
Yeah.
Okay. USB-C power.
Yeah, and then there's a second link in the notes. It might be more detailed, line 931 in the notes. That one's going to Linux Gizmos, and I will say Linux Gizmos seems to not just copy paste what other people say, but they try to put a little bit more on their articles.
Okay, all right. So it's an A53.
Yeah, 1.5 quad core.
So not a killer.
o-droid C2. o-droid C2 is a mini computer I've had for a while. It was my main home theater computer for over a year. So the C2 is at least 3 years old, is what I'm going to say. So yes, it's not something new or crazy, fast kind of thing, but it should be solid.
I think we got a winner here. I love that white PVC. That looks really cool. Just very different. You don't see that often. I don't. Just adds a little class to it.
Yeah, I honestly think the colors of the boards also pertain to region of development. I honestly believe white boards are boards that have been manufactured, made in South America. I could be mistaken, but that's what I think. Thought, and the main reason is Libra is a Spanish word. Potatoes originated from South America, not from Ireland. And there was another thing I saw on one of the Libra things that to me indicated Brazil. So I want to say this board's coming from South America.
So, looking at this thing,
You mean creator Jose Angel Torres wasn't a clue either?
I didn't see that.
Bing.
So I'm going with I was right. Yes. Okay. The other one I wanted to bring, and it's really just like a rounding third kind of thing. Line 932, Pine 64. Apparently now they're going to try to be putting out updates almost every month. We talked a couple months ago about the Pine, of course, the Pine Book Pro, but we also talked about the Pine phone, and we talked about the Pine Tab. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to try to buy the Pine Book Pro on day one, but I'm also maybe more wanting the Pine Book Tab, even though it's not sleek, it's not sexy, the bezels are huge, but it's a true Linux operating system on a tablet form factor, and I'm actually giddy about that possibility. But they also have what they consider to be like final renders of what the Pine phone would look like. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, this looks like a modern phone. It doesn't look great. It's not like iPhone X type of no bezels, no chin, no forehead kind of thing.
I'd get this phone in a heartbeat.
But yes, yeah, in a heartbeat, like you said. It's gorgeous. Don't undersell it too much. It looks really good.
And I'll say it like this: I will be okay if I have to keep a second device on my person for a year to listen to podcasts at 4x or 5x, because I can tell you right now, that is the only thing I think I do on my mobile device that is at all like specific or high end, or you know what I mean, that I can't live without. The like killer feature I have to have is I have to have audio at least 3x, if not 5x.
I really hope they do well with the Pine phone. I don't know if I would get it, just because I already carry two phones as it is, and I don't think I need a third one. But I would definitely get the Pine Book Pro. Do they have any images of the Pine tab? I'm not seeing them.
Not yet, no.
I'm curious what that would look like.
Well, when they showed it off at the the European FalseCon, it looked like a tablet from 2 years ago. It didn't look like something, the bezels were literally like an inch and a half all the way around. But I'm willing to put up with that.
I'm going to say if Walmart can launch a tablet and be okay with it, I think this would kill it.
I hope so. So did you guys want to talk about line 948 in the notes?
Yes. Oh, yes. The Up Extreme.
I'm going to say they jumped the shark.
A Core i7. A Core i7.
They've lost their mind.
On like a single board computer. But I'll say this. A gigantic single board computer in comparison.
Right. When you mean gigantic, you mean 4 inches by 4 inches?
Yeah, that's definitely bigger than most of my single board computers.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So the thing that I liked about Up is the thing that I liked about the Atomic Pi. The first Up board was I don't know if it was $150 or something like that, 100 and change bucks. So you have an Intel board, if I recall correctly, 4 gigs of RAM, USB 3, a bunch of features on it. So reasonably priced Intel single board computer. The Up Squared was, getting closer to the Nook price range, but it was still, I think, a deal. This, I'm not sure. I now, if you see the different configs, there's other reasons you'd want this. If you want a Nook-sized device, get a Nook. If you want something like the Net Plus has 4 additional LAN ports for a total of 6. So there's different boards that go on this. So there's a different use case for this device. So I don't know. I don't know that I have a use for it. I like it. I think it's cool. It's a bunch of money, and that's up to you to decide.
Yeah, the low end starts with a Intel Celeron, and it's just the board, and that's starting out at $240, $280. And then it goes insane with an i7 and
See, I'd
daughter
be in the
boards that are
$700
crazy.
range for what I'd want.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a use case, you look at this, you'll instantly know why you need this board, and then no one's going to talk you out of getting this board. But if you don't have an instant use case for this board, you just look at it thinking, wow, this is a really nice board, but it's not cheap either.
I think the Up company is kind of going in the same direction as Asus is with their Tinker board and the Jensen as well too. I think they're AI focused. They're going for that, pushing AI to the edge with their hardware.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. The one that I want is $1,076.
All
Hey,
right.
The unfortunate thing is at $1,076, I can order the parts and build crap that would be crazy amazing. At $1,076, I don't have to have this sandwich sized. I'm okay with it being mini tower sized.
Yeah, I agree.
Because look, I want i7, I want 32 gigs of RAM. I can do that very cost effectively in a larger form factor. This loses a lot, and again, there's definite use cases for it. I don't have any of them, and I'm not talking it down. I'm just saying, for me personally, it's not on my buy list or my interest list at all. Up has done some really neat things, and I would say in the car range, if you're a newer person, you'd say Miata. If you're an older guy, you'd say MG Midget. Or like Sunbeam Tiger would be the right one, because that's an MG Midget with a Shelby V8 in it. So I think Up did some very cool things. This, I don't know. Again, not I don't have the use case for it. Other people may, and it may be of value to them.
Gotcha. Were there any other things in the notes that you guys wanted to bring up or talk about?
For sure. 952.
Oh yeah.
So so let me add this to number 3 on my list. So number 1, I got to try out the Mozilla Hub. What was the number 2? I got to try out that I haven't done yet. The Mastodon thingy, something OS, whatever. And so this is number 3. So NEMS Linux. So this was brought to me by Brad Alexander. And he's like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I'm like, "What?" So NEMS is Nagios, or what's it stand for?
That's right.
Where is it?
It's Nagios.
It's Nagios Enterprise Monitoring Server for single board computers. Oh, and so this doesn't just run on a Raspberry Pi. It runs on o-droid. It runs on, let's see, Orange Pi, which I'm shocked at, Pine 64, Raspberry Pi, Tinkerboard, I believe o-droid. Yep, o-droid, and it runs on a bunch of different versions of the o-droid.
They support
So
the
it's
Orange
listed.
Pie. That's saying something.
Yeah.
With a block of ice. So o-droid N2, XU4, HC2, HC1, XU3, MC1, C2, EMC, or ST Sort. I was like, whoa, very cool, very cool on this.
Yeah, they certainly did not pigeonhole themselves by locking them down with just the Raspberry Pi. Spread the love around.
And I'm just like, all right, I don't want to run it on my N2. My N2's too hot stuff for that. But you can run it on a Rock 64, Rock Pro 64. So it runs Pine device. I'm like, because my Rock 64s I just have hanging right now, and I'm like, I could run, this on the Rock 64. That'd be perfect. Because I was running Observium on one of my Orange Pi Zeros, like my H2, I believe it was, and whatever happened. So, it just kind of flaked out. But yeah, this is something I'd be interested in. So
Yeah.
I got 3 things I want to run, and the 4th thing I want to do is LVM on ARM with the stack of disks that I have kicking around. Which LVM, if we haven't talked about it, I know we personally have talked about it, but the users have not heard. LVM is Logical Volume Manager, and basically what it allows you to do is drop a whole bunch of disks. If I am 100% correct, because I don't want to talk about stuff I haven't done yet, is I have a bunch of hard drives, SATA drives, that I could drop in the toasters that have USB connectors on them, plug them into my N2, because my N2 has 4 USB 3.0 ports, and have a whole stack of disks that make noise and heat and use up power, and have them all available, as opposed to some sort of striping or ZFS or whatever file system. And that's another thing I might try just for the heck of it to do. But okay, so I'm stuck with 3 things I want to do on a Raspberry Pi-ish, and a 4th thing I want to do with a bunch of hard drives.
Gotcha. Well, I'll say I'm not personally a fan of client-based monitoring, because that just means I can't monitor everything. I can only monitor things where I can install the client on it. But one line here caught my eye. It says it's below the Nemesis Linux Vision. Go down a little bit further, and it says, I am Robert Ferguson, known as Bald Nerd. I am the developer responsible for building and maintaining NEMS Linux. I am the host and founder of Category 5 Tech TV, basically. I'm not a fan of Category 5. I haven't been a fan of Category 5 for years. But that's just a personal taste thing. He makes good stuff. He puts passion in everything he does. And there's few people out there creating Linux-centric topics that I believe that when they say something, they actually believe it. And they actually have experience with it. And they actually talk upon things that they witnessed themselves. So for him to be involved with this suddenly gives this thing to me tons more credibility and tons more longevity. I believe now you could install this thing on your devices, and 6, 8 months, 2 years, 4 years from now, you'll still be able to get updates for it, because he will keep it up to date.
Gotta agree with you on that one, Dor. He does have a lot of passion for the industry and for the business.
Well, and I got no problem saying this. He's a he is one of the smarter guys I've ever listened to in my life in the field of computing.
So the Nagios, this might be obvious to a lot of people. It does SNMP, which is what the Observium was doing. So it is kind of lightweight. You do have to have a daemon on board, so it's the SNMPD to make it work and run. But
simple monitoring network protocol. The question is will it let you run in version 1 and version 2? And if it does, it's incompetent, because it should never let you run in version 1 or version 2, because version 1 and version 2, you don't have to have any authentication and it will do anything. Only version 3 is done, in my opinion, right.
Yeah, it definitely has some security issues.
Yeah, I had to prove to a guy at work the hard way that we need to stop running stuff on version 1 and version 2, and he didn't believe me. So I told him to sit there and watch his computer. And then I showed him like 100 network devices going down. And he like started freaking out. And I had him on the phone and said, no, dude, it's all fake. It's just, I just sent them to you because there's no authentication. He's like, we need to fix this. Yeah, I know.
That's a good one.
Yeah, he was ready to start going crazy. Thankfully, I had him on the phone at the same time, or else I might have gotten into trouble.
So you're like, back away from the ledge. Back away from the ledge.
Joey, thanks for pointing that out. I totally missed that line there. And I've checked out Category 5 a few times, and I would have missed that altogether, putting two and two together. That actually is good to know.
Yeah, and then last thing I wanted to end off with, and it's really the kind of thing I don't read nothing. I never read nothing nobody ever puts toward me, but I do listen. When I have articles that are in text, I listen to them, either using Gitpocket or using a different application. And this one definitely caught my eye. 935 in the notes. I think this guy is on to something, is what I'm going to say. And I'm trying to remember now who it was. His name is Rich Miller, wrote this article, but the guy that they were talking about,
Simon Crosby,
yeah, Chief Technology Officer at Swim.ai, which is just a really good name of a company. I think he's on to something. What he's basically stating is the future of computing is basically something that right now we can't really foresee of how it's going to be. But he sees it as being hardware getting cheaper, hardware getting faster, software getting more optimized, software getting smarter, and us having inordinate amounts, insane amounts of cheap computers like a Raspberry Pi thrown all over networks, all over places. You just put a Raspberry Pi here, you put a Raspberry Pi there, you put a Raspberry Pi over there, and you just have them all over the place. And these computers will actually be the future of edge computing and wide area networking intelligence is what I want to say to summarize it. But I definitely encourage people, go to data. I can't even read it. DataCenterFrontier.com. Read this article. Listen to what this guy says. I'm not going to say he's right, but I think he's closer to being right than the average person is aware of, kind of thing. I think he's definitely on to something.
I wonder if this guy wrote a book. I'd like to read it.
Yeah, and like I don't even know how long it's been, because everything's a blur when you enjoy Yinglings and everything. Edge is real. Edge is distributed computing, and I hate saying it like this. If you don't watch Silicon Valley on HBO, which I will say it's abhorrent, it's like, potty humor, whatever, however you want to put it. it's lowbrow stuff, but on the technology side, they are unbelievably accurate in a lot of things. And what they focused on lately was the decentralized internet. And with these edge computers, I can definitely see a huge swing of infrastructure going towards a more decentralized state. And I can see, honestly, cheap devices like a Raspberry Pi becoming integral in that kind of ecosystem. Right now they're shipping, I want to say in this article, he said something like they're shipping 3 million ARM processors on all kinds of devices every month. And that number's not going to go down.
Intel better be very afraid. No, but I remember we talked about this either a year ago or 2 years ago. Has it been that long? Maybe it was a year ago.
Been a while. I know that.
Yeah, it has. But I do remember having this conversation where computing, in a sense, has been hub and spoke. So you have, your servers and your clients, and now we've been kind of getting out of that situation and kind of pushing things to the edge a little bit, and not so much having everything in the cloud, pushing more and more applications to the edge to make things a little faster as far as processing information a lot faster. And this is exactly kind of what we've been hitting on. I mean, he's touching on every point.
Well, and I'll say this. I don't want to say faster is the wrong word, because it's the right word. But the way I think of it is agile.
Yes.
Because we're going to have hardware as a service, operating systems as a service, applications as a service, microservices as services, functions as services. So when it comes time to program, what's going to happen is with these future ecosystems is you're going to have to program less as a programmer, but then be reliant on the entire ecosystem to be up and running and be nimble and agile and fast in order to have everything work correctly. I'll just say, and I'll put it like this. If you're in a closed loop ecosystem, enterprise network, you ain't got to worry about no edge. Okay. You're going to keep doing what you're doing with the hybrid cloud, with, your servers and stuff. You'll be fine. But when you're dealing with the general public at large, and there's 10 times more customers and 10 times more money to be made in that ecosystem, you're going to have to be more hyper aware of what edge means. And most importantly, how to take advantage of it. Because there is, we right now think Amazon rules everything, Google rules everything, Facebook rules everything. Well, the only constant is change. We don't need government to step in and do anything. We just need to let the systems and the markets flush themselves out. And there's no doubt in 3 or 4 years from now, there's going to be another company who's going to be either seriously contending with those or completely destroying one of those companies and doing something a little bit different, a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little bit smarter, a little bit more convenient, thus getting more of our data. And I'll say this, the best line I heard in the last week was, data is not the new oil. Data is the next plutonium. Because what you can do with it is much more than just burn a light off of it. You can do everything with plutonium.
So we should be scraping our own data, I think.
Well, we should be getting something for it, is my logic. Not just free email, not just free searching. And the link I want to throw out then really quick is, I want to say it's bloom.sh. Holy crap, I can't believe I got that right. Bloom.sh. And it's billed as being a open source Google. And when I first read this, I was very apprehensive. I was very cocky. So it's like another DuckDuckGo or something, like insulting it. But no, it's not. It has nothing to do with search. It's an open ecosystem where you create an account. It gives you your drive. It gives you a online downloader, so you can go to a place, right click, copy the URL to a download, come in here to Bitflow, paste it, and it will download the file to your cloud. You don't got to download it locally. Has built-in a note application, contacts application, music application, gallery application, so photos, music, some kind of arcade, which I'm terrified to click on, and like a drive, and it has some sort of global security scanner built in as well. You get 28 gigs for free. This is interesting. This is not going to disturb Google whatsoever. But I find it quite interesting, is what I'll say.
I find it extremely interesting. I missed the name of that link. Can you repeat that again?
Bloom, BLOOM.sh. And being a Linux weenie, when I see something ending in .sh, I'm almost afraid to type it in because I think it could do anything. It's a shell file. But no, it's just a simple website. And it's the kind of thing I think we as a culture, we as a customer, we as a people, we have to become more comfortable with spending money on things, or be absolutely comfortable with them making money off of what we use it for. Like Google or like Facebook, they make money off of our interactions. They make money off of our eyeballs. So we're going to either have to compensate the company for our time, for our data, or an advertiser is going to have to compensate them for it, because all companies have to make money.
Did you sign up, Dor?
Of course, yes.
Just wondering.
It's completely free.
What do you think, Rich?
Sounds good. Sounds interesting. I've been trying to find. I remember a link. Unfortunately, it's more difficult for me to link things when I'm at work. But I remember seeing a cheap wireless chip that's supposed to do like 10 kilometers, and I can't find it.
10 kilometers?
Yeah, it was something like that, and I can't find the story. Can't find the article now.
Well, then it probably causes cancer. Oh, wait.
But Joe Biden's going to cure that. Well, if he becomes there's no cure.
He has no chance. I got no problem saying that. Have you heard him talk? Oh, my goodness. Oh. And look, I am always open to vote for anybody every election cycle. Show me what you got. Talk your best game. Listen to him talk is quite discouraging.
No, I don't think I've heard him talk yet.
Yeah, was it Iowa he was talking? It sounded like he was sleeping.
Yeah. I did like the only person I've heard talk who actually caught my attention was Yang, the Asian fella. He at least sounded intelligent. I'm not going to say I agreed with what he said, but he at least sounded intelligent.
So now that we ticked off half our audience.
That's okay. They'll get over it because it doesn't matter. This is, and it's the news cycle. There'll be something happening in 2 days from now that everyone will then forget.
So here's what I have to say about politics is there's fools that say, if so-and-so gets elected, I'm leaving the country. No matter who gets elected, even if it's somebody you hate, it's still the best country in the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter. I mean, whoever gets elected, basically nothing really seems to change, whether it's a Democrat, a Republican, or anything else. Everything just moves forward. I get up in the next morning, I go to work, things get done.
Planet's still spinning. We're still moving.
Yeah, and North Korea is still North Korea. Taiwan is still Taiwan. You see, in Hong Kong, oh my! I will say this: I've been interested in a lot of economist stuff, slightly political, and economist is nothing more than the study of human behavior. But I looked at a guy who literally looked at the last 200 years. Anytime there was any kind of incitement from individuals onto a government. And what he found out was when people protest violently versus when people protest peacefully, they were 8 times more likely to be more successful in a quicker frame of time when it's a non-violent protest. And what we saw in Hong Kong was insane, the amount of people marching down the street. And he didn't hear about hundreds and hundreds of people dying. So that's when a country has decided, a citizenship has decided it's time for our voice to be heard. And no matter who is elected here in the U.S.,
this is about extradition.
It's about the right to sovereignty inside of a country. They don't want another country, technically, to be able to say at a whim, "Give me your people." You have to show just cause of why you need a person, and the law that was passed, there was no just cause needed. China just had to say to Hong Kong, "Give me him," and the law was you give him the person with no justification why. So no matter what happens in this country, you don't see hundreds of thousands of people protesting. It's not that bad. It really isn't that bad.
Well, Hong Kong, isn't that where Snowden went to?
I think that was Russia.
Initially he went to Hong Kong, I believe.
I want to say Taiwan, yes.
Taiwan?
He was in Hong Kong, then he bounced to Taiwan, then he went to Russia, yes. And there's a reason why, because Hong Kong and Taiwan are two of the freest economic places in the world.
With no extradition.
Right. And I get lots of my boards from Hong Kong too, so I want Hong Kong to keep running,
And keep those tariffs down.
Yeah. I was I can't remember where I was at now. About 2 weeks ago. I was at a restaurant playing some Android games on my GPD XD. It looks like a Nintendo 3DS foldable clamshell design gaming system, and the guy said to me, "That's not a 3DS. What do you have there?" And I said, "It's a GPD." He said, "GPD?" I said, "Yeah, straight out of Hong Kong." And when you boot it up, it literally says GPD.HK, because this thing comes literally straight out of Hong Kong. 10-hour battery life, ridiculously good gaming experience, $140 or so. Hong Kong is where you go when you want something, and it's only available one place in the world. You go to Hong Kong.
Yeah. They've been at this thing for a long time, though. I remember being a kid and seeing video players and all kinds of cool tech that weren't even out in the United States. So they've been at this for a while.
Yeah, and chatter in the YouTube, I do believe it was passed, but in Hong Kong, I believe when a thing gets passed, it still has like 30 days to be pulled back, if I heard correctly. I will just say, watching world news makes me more comfortable. It's the Jerry Springer effect. Other countries are experiencing troubles and issues, makes me feel a little bit calmer about what's going on everywhere around here, even though we all have our own problems, we all have our own fires to put out. And like I explained to my boss today, every firefighter needs to put out fires, but if we don't water our own plants and our own flowers and our own gardens, our family's going to starve. So we have to set priorities, and we have to take turns with what we consider to be a priority. So how about today, I don't answer that email from that guy, and we work on our stuff today. Thankfully, she agreed with me, so I was able to get some actual work done today. But yeah, I'll say thanks to you guys for coming out. Going almost 2 hours here, dang it. Is there any way you would like people to catch up with you, Brian?
I'm actually floating around on Instagram every now and then. Believe it or not, I do subscribe to Twitter, but I'm never there. So you can either hit me up on Instagram or you can send me an email over at podnutz.com.
Roger. And that is minipc@podnutz.com. Hey, Rich, if people want to contact with you, what's the simplest way?
So flyingrich.com or on the IG, Flying Rich Official.
Did you just say the IG?
Like the Instagram? And
like the
Twitter,
YouTube? The Google?
YouTube? The computer?
Okay, if you want to catch up with me, figure it out for yourself. It's not hard. I want to thank everyone who did take the time to send me a birthday wishes on Facebook, because I'll never see them. But thank you for trying, but I'm never going to be on that wretched network. And really quick side tangent before we end the show. 10 years ago, I would be the guy who would happily throw a pie in the face of Bill Gates and smear it in. What that man has done in the last 10 years has made me completely change my belief about him and what can come out of Microsoft. I still don't like Microsoft, but good things can come out of it. I'm terrified to say in 10 years, Mark Zuckerberg, the good things he did makes me feel less bad about Facebook, because it's going to take a lot for him to change my opinion of him. I hope that actually happens. But for right now, I'm not giving him a dime. I'm not feeding into any of his ecosystems. So you can ping me on Facebook saying happy birthday. I'm never going to see it. But thank you for the effort. And we'll say I'm another year older, another year wiser, maybe. I don't know. But I thank everyone for their support. I thank everyone for download. Do not forget 7076 Podnut if you want to send an email. And minipc@podnutz.com if you want to send us an email. And we will talk to everyone again, hopefully real soon.